What's going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes always deliver the big names here on Junkie Radio. Today we get to talk to Bellator flyweight champion Liz Carmouche, who's got a title defense coming up here at Bellator 300 in San Diego, America's finest city. Her opponent, Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, one of the former champions in that same division. What's going on, Liz? How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. Big card, historical card in San Diego. I don't think they could have written a better script for you personally. That's been home for many years now, and so you get to sleep in your own bed, and I think take a little bit of the stress off of an upcoming fight, right?
If anything, I feel like fighting hometown is always a lot more stressful. You have people that would normally never be able to attend your fights, families and friends that are like, "Hey, I'm going to be there. How do I do this?" I'm like, "Hey, I don't know how you got to figure that out. I'm just here to train." So it definitely puts a little bit more weight, but at the same time, it's super convenient. I train at the arena. I'm looking at the stadium they're going to be fighting at. So that's just a crazy thought that all those opportunities I saw other people is now going to be me showcasing in San Diego.
I always wondered if a fighter could benefit from doing an FAQ on their upcoming fight and just posting it on your social media. Want tickets? Go here. Want to meet up? This is where the after party is. Just to kind of like deflect. You ever thought of something like that? Or you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I did that. And it's still, for whatever reason, I made a post and said, here's the website, here's the code you can use. I put it on my story. I told everybody, and yet they're still like, how do I? I'm like, guys, I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you. I gave you the link. I gave you the code. There's not much more I can do than that. But
how many tickets do you get as a fighter? Is it different from as a champion versus a non-champion?
It's just the same as far as I know.
How many do you get?
I was told I get 4, but don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure.
Well, who are the other 2?
Yeah, Goes and I are going, and then who are you going to give the other 2 to?
Well, my wife and my son definitely get priority in that.
Okay.
George actually got me thinking, Liz. So we're Orange County guys, but we live in Vegas. And maybe we should have an FAQ because every weekend somebody shows up. I'm here, and they just want you to roll out the red carpet and go crazy Vegas style. We can't do that.
Yeah.
We need an
FAQ.
FAQ,
I think that it's the same thing. Like people come to San Diego like, oh, we're going to go do this. I'm like, I can't, just because you're on vacation, I don't get to drop everything and all responsibilities to be on vacation. But yeah, especially for Vegas, I have friends that are out in Vegas, and I'll at least like contact them like, hey, I'm going to be there in the week. I'd love to go out to dinner with you. But people are people.
Now, can you tell us, just so that there's no misunderstanding, what's the relationship with Ilima-Lei? I know you guys used to train together, and how often was that, and how close was the friendship, or was it just, hey, that's a teammate? I guess we want to hear it from you rather than just from what we've heard before.
So yeah, we used to be, I'd say we were each other's main training partners coming up. We did most of our training camps together, helping each other get ready. As far as the friendship, we're still friends. I mean, her last fight camp, she needed a vehicle. I let her borrow my truck. I was out of town for a weekend. She got hay for my wife. So we're still friends. We're sharing food videos with each other. So the friendship is still there. That hasn't waned for any reason. Has no reflection on the fight. But as far as training together, no, we haven't been training together for a few years, but we were an integral part of each other's fight camps for a lot of years.
Was the reason you guys stopped training because of this possibility of an anticipated showdown between 2 great flyweights, or just other reasons took you guys in different directions?
No, for a few years, my coaches have been telling me that I needed to cross-train some other schools, that I just needed to get challenged in different looks, that I just wasn't being pushed the way that I needed to. I felt like I was being disloyal, and just didn't know how to be able to do that with my work schedule at the gym, as well as being able to train at other places. And I finally made an opportunity, took advantage of it, and then ultimately was able to find a different training team that I now train with.
Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you was, first of all, full respect for what you've done in your career. It is simply amazing. And when we're prepping for the interview, you look back at, everything you've done. Like, I know you had 4 fights with Strikeforce, 10 with the UFC. I think this is 7 with Bellator. And now, you are wearing gold. You had a few opportunities to do that, came up short. And I guess what I want to get to is this. Not a lot of fighters can be world champions. A lot of fighters seem like they get there and then either, I don't know if give up's the right word, or they just choose to start a new career and go in another direction. But I just love your story of not quitting, not giving up. And at the same time, not only did you reach the top, you vanquished the same foe who everyone thought, oh, you might have gotten lucky or whatever. Then you put another title defense in your pocket. And so now you're actually starting to add to that championship legacy. Can you talk about what it took to not give up on yourself and to push forward? And what would you advise a fighter that has maybe come up short and thinks, oh, this is the end of the world, I can never get back up to challenge again?
Yeah, I'd say in the past that, like my first opportunity to be able to fight for gold was in Strikeforce, and that was a 9 days notice fight. I was a nobody. I had just a little trickle of experience compared to the champion that I was fighting. And I was able to put her into troubled waters. I was able to go 4 rounds when people expected me to be submitted in the first 20 seconds of the first round. And then that second one, it was definitely, again, somebody that I was greatly underexperienced to, that had been a champion in Strikeforce and gone on to the UFC. And I just knew that I came so close in all these other opportunities and felt like I put in so much more work than any other fighter that I've ever talked to. And like I carried myself the way I thought that a champion should be since day one. And yet I just couldn't be able to pull that trigger and do it correctly in the cage. But I knew that the only thing really missing, it wasn't my skill set. It wasn't my strength. It wasn't my conditioning. It was really just the mental and being able to put myself in the right framework to do things correctly within the cage. And I knew that I just had to get my head right, get in there, and then I could do it and just face up the opportunity. I would work my way to do that again. And I was. And it was really just the belief in the coaching staff that I have, the support from them, and being able to encourage and get things ready that reassured me that I could go in there and take that win and bring the belt home.
Liz, so at this point in your career, you're up on top right now. How do you feel? George mentioned you've been doing this a while and you've faced a lot of good competitors, but when we evaluate you overall, like, is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Do you feel just as good as you felt 5-6 years ago?
In some ways, I feel better than I did. I mean, 5-6 years ago, I was operating a gym full time. So I was there first thing in the morning training. And then immediately, as soon as I was done with training, I was working at the gym until it closed in the evening. And some nights that meant being there till midnight. And then I still have to be back first thing in the morning to be able to train myself. And I was just kind of burning the candle at both ends. I wasn't doing the recovery. I wasn't doing massage, chiropractic adjustment. I wasn't doing anything other than like keeping my diet correct and exercising with everything I had. I wasn't doing it correctly. And I was still doing some of the old school training techniques that we've since let go. And so I feel like I'm healthier now. I have a better awareness because I take the time to really focus on what my recovery needs, doing all the science backed to make sure that I'm doing it all correctly, researching for myself what benefits me. So in some ways, I feel better than I did 5 or 6 years ago because I'm a full-time fighter. This is what I do all day, every day, and that's great. And in other ways, I'm like, man, I wish that I knew the lessons. Like everybody can say, I wish I knew the lessons today, then, so that I could have benefited then when I still had more youth to be able to put into it. But I feel great. And where I see so many people where like each year they seem to kind of like wane a little bit and get weaker, get slower. I feel just as good this year as I did last year and the year before.
You mentioned earlier in the interview that a coach had mentioned to you cross training, and you talked about how you maybe had a couple difficulties as far as loyalty and that feeling. And we've heard a lot of fighters talk about that. Eventually, what were those first days like for you, and what was it that helped you get over that feeling?
Yeah, originally it was really difficult. I'd say when I finally like stepped out and I started cross training with a different coach, and had the support of the coach, but still under the same umbrella as my old gym, was the Shevchenko fight. And that, like, I felt like I'd grown so much with this other coaching staff, but was still doing some of the handicaps of the old gym. And I feel like that really played a role in the Shevchenko fight. I think if I'd gone under just the new coaching staff that I'm with now, I think I could have won that fight, or at least had a much better outcome. And so it was really walking away from that fight where I realized the mistakes that I was making, what it was, and I was able to identify what those were and the things I did correctly in that fight and identify those as well. And really, I was able to step back and look at it for what it was and pick it apart and see that the path I needed to take was with another gym. And that at the end of the day, I'm not being disloyal to that gym, that what I was trying to do is grow myself. And we're in an individual sport. As much as you have your fight team and they absolutely contribute so much to your success and being able to get in there, at the end of the day, you go in there and see you against the other person. And if you haven't done everything right to prepare for that, it's you that ultimately is going to suffer for it. So I realized that I had to take that step and be loyal to myself and loyal to my future.
Liz, whenever there are former training partners that are facing each other, sometimes fighters will say there's some good things that come out of that. And then others will say, man, I overthink it because there was just so many questions about it, and it was so long ago. What do you think? Like, is it more good or is it more bad?
I would definitely say that it's different. I think with every fight, I overthink every single fight. I mean, I've gone in there and I've had a coach, my coach now, Charles Martinez and Vince Salvador. Both of them are like, okay, you have all this going for you and this. I'm like, yeah, but she does this correctly. I'm overthinking. They're like, stop thinking about these things. Just worry about yourself. Focus on yourself. So that plays a role no matter. And it's the same case here where I've cornered Ilima. She's cornered me. I've like picked apart and mimicked her opponents for her in preparation for her fight, knowing her strengths, knowing her weaknesses, trying to help her get ready for stuff. So I've played that role and I've assessed her as though like, okay, well, if I was your coach on the opposite team against you, what would I say we needed to work on? So I've done all the parts of trying to face Ilima. And then now facing her, it's certainly different. Like the last thing you want to do is to go in there and to hurt your friend. Like I certainly don't want to permanently hurt her. I don't want to maim her or anything like that. But we both have the goals we have in mind. And I can't put aside my success and my family to be able to place her needs and her success ahead. So while it is awkward, I know that we've competed side by side in so many different opportunities and had opportunities where we're going to face each other and just didn't work out. And we've always said, like, we would put it on the line harder against each other than any other opponent, because at the end of the day, we know we can hug each other, and it's genuine hugs, just growth through the experience and sharing it together.
You said you guys still maintain communication. Have you ever brought up the fight, even just casually speaking?
Yeah, I can remember one of the fights where she cornered me in the UFC. She was there and they gave me like my paperwork and she was looking over. I was like, hey, what are you doing? She's like, I was just curious to know like how they pay you and take care of you. And I'm like, well, would you ever fight in the UFC? Like, why? Like, there's more fighters in this 125 division. Would you ever? She's like, no, absolutely not. She's like, Bellator takes good care of me. I'm happy where I'm at. I would never want to fight there. And I was like, okay, well, what if I left the UFC and I came to Bellator? And we talked about, I mean, even when we compete in jiu-jitsu tournaments, we're entering in the same weight class in the same tournament. We're at the same belt level with the potential to compete against each other. And our coach was like, no, you guys don't. And then we turn like, we're going to do this, right? It's always just been common knowledge that when you come up together and you're at the top of each of your organizations, that it's inevitable that at some point, in some way, you're going to face each other. So we knew this day was going to come. It was just a matter of time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate that. I guess what I was wondering was like the more recent, like when you said something about borrowing the truck, or even just in the last few days, like, are you nervous? No, are you nervous? Or are you feeling great? How's your, like, are you guys even picking each other's brain at all just to keep it casual, or has there just been a complete cutoff of communication?
I think that's been the biggest thing. We just because I know we're both of us, we know where we both stand. Like we've been there helping each other's weight slips. Like her last fight, I fought Friday, she fought Saturday. Her sauna broke or she'd forgotten it, so I went downstairs and brought her my sauna to be able to use after I used it. Like we're still friends. It's not going to change.
That's cool.
But we know what we go through, and I'm like, hey, if you need me, like my fight's done, I can come help you for the weight cut. Just let me know. I can be a body, whatever. Knowing full well that fight was ultimately going to decide. If she won that fight against Kana, it was no doubt in either of our mind that we would then face each other because of where Kana's ranking was and because where I was at. So me helping somebody that I'm potentially going to face, I could look at it that way, or I could look at it like, well, it's going to be a fist fight no matter what. We're going to go in there, but I can do it with respect and do it with friendship, or I can let all that slide and bring some weird animosity and some weirdness, and it's just not worth it to me. So we've definitely talked about it, but these days it's more just talking about all the delicious food post-fight that we can't wait to eat, like creme brulee.
This is the most professional and coolest not even rivalry, but just warfare between two friends that I've ever heard of. And I am fascinated by it. And I think it's awesome that you two have been able to do that. Like, I really applaud you two. I've seen it ruin others, friendships or whatever. And this one's like the complete opposite. It's refreshing to hear.
Yeah, I think that if I was still in the same gym, I definitely think it would make a weird element. I mean, we spoke years ago about like, well, what if I was, before I left that gym, like, what if we do compete? What if I go to Bellator and we compete against each other? Are we going to swap corners every round? Are we just not going to have our corners involved and only have the cutmen? Like, what are we going to do? So we kind of played these scenarios, and Manola said, he's like, I'm going to cry, so you might as well just keep me out of it one way or the other. I need to not be involved. So we had talked about, we ultimately said, like, maybe we just keep them out of it and we just fight and let's just do this. So we've already talked through those scenarios. I think that would make it weird just because it can make animosity and conflicts within the gym, having to like train differently or not train with each other. So me being in a different gym, I think helped us be able to better prepare for this. But we've, like, if you watch any of our fights, neither of us have ever been trash talkers. There's never been, if you watch Ilima, she invites all of her opponents to her luau afterwards because she's like, look, we're going in there to fight. There's no reason for us to have an animosity and to do anything. We don't hate any of our opponents. It doesn't make any sense. We're going out there and we're going to punch each other and hurt each other in the face. Why not smile and have food and drinks afterwards?
Yeah, that's great. It really is. I was gonna crack a joke. I don't know if you would have caught it, but when you said us two fight and no one else be there, I'm like, okay, who are you guys? Apollo Creed and Rocky Balboa. But I don't know if you get that reference, because in Rocky 3 they did the private fight. But yeah, like I say, if anyone could pull that one off, it'd be you two, and we would trust you guys to tell us what happened. But
yeah,
Liz, I think it's been a while since we've caught up. Can we borrow you for a few more minutes? We've kept you 17. I don't know what your time is like here on Fight Week. Okay, I appreciate it. I've been hanging on to this question for 10 years. In your lead up to Rousey, I think it was Manny who said in one of those countdowns or something, anywhere she is, we can threaten her with an armbar. And was that true? And if so, where was the weirdest place that someone just, because if it was open season, green light to do the armbar anywhere, where was that true?
I think it was green light to do the armbar, but I think that everybody was honestly a little bit hesitant because when it comes to, we would play a lot of different games in the gym on trying to scare each other, right? There was like two of our guys that scared so easily. We would prank them day in and day out, from like changing phone calls, setting things up when they open a door to swing down and scare them. Like, we were belligerent with it. And ultimately one day he decided that he wanted to try and prank me back. And I guess I took it too far. So in the gym, it was unanimously decided that no prank. I was not allowed to be involved in any prank wars. Nobody was to prank me because I would just go above and beyond because I come up with all these crazy ideas. So they ultimately decided it was only fair within the training mat to try and do it, because if they did elsewhere, I might accidentally get violent and attack them. So everybody decided just to keep it training wise.
I love it. And then the last one is, I don't know if you know this, but, well, you probably do, but I'm kind of a numbers guy. You've won your last 6 in a row. And to start your career, you won 6 in a row, and sandwiched in between was a 6-6 run. So obviously there was something that clicked in year one and something that's been clicking in the last 3 years. What I wanted to ask you was, what are you more proud of, those first 6 wins or the last 6? Now, before you go, hey, you big dummy, I'm a champ now, I'm way more proud of this. You did those first 6 in one whole year, and one of them includes Valentina Shevchenko finishing her, which obviously we know what a great fighter she became. That's a huge win for you. But what do you think went right then and is just going right now? Is there anything in common between those two Liz Carmouches?
Yeah, I would say that in the early days of fighting, I was absolutely always the underdog. Every time that I came in, I was the nobody who was willing to take a last-minute phone call. When they called around, nobody else could do a last-minute replacement. They knew that they could always count on me, that I trained all year round, never took breaks. So that first year, I just went in with like, hey, if I win or lose, this is just a great opportunity, and it's an accomplishment that I had a chance to do this. And at that point, I didn't know if I actually wanted to pursue it as a professional. I didn't know how long it was going to take me. It was, hey, I'm just following this as long as it'll keep carrying me. If that means 2 more months, 3 more years, or this is the last fight, who knows? I just loved every opportunity that provided. In that same sense, it's kind of the same thing now, where I think so many people have counted me out and thought that I've made mistakes. I was going to decisions late in my career, and people are just kind of like tired of watching those fights. And I came to a decision where I'm like, okay, I'm entering into a new organization. I want to do it with a clean slate. Yes, people know who I am, and yes, I'm coming with a ranking from previous, but here's a new opportunity to enter an organization where I'm not ranked, and to redesign myself and to come out with that same mentality of every opportunity. I just get to go there and I get to get everything that I have and put it all on the line and just give all of it out there to put on my best performance. And without that guessing and being like, man, I don't want to make a mistake and get embarrassed. I think some of my fights, my career started to come with like, well, I don't want to make this mistake. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And now I'm going out there like, let me just get everything I have. I have tonight. I have this opportunity. I love what I do. Let me go out there and show people that I love what I do and try and do fun stuff and just enjoy every single fight.
It's working. 5 of the last 6 have been finishes. 5 of the first 6 were finishes as well. And like I said, there's just a lot of great fighters you've beaten on your resume. It's really, really impressive. And I want to thank you for today's interview on Fight Week. We appreciate it. I hope you and Ilima have an awesome fight at Bellator 300. Of course, folks, you can watch on Showtime or head down to the arena where tickets are still available. America's finest city, good place to spend the weekend. Thank you, Miss Gorilla. Hopefully I said that right. The Bellator flyweight champion, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.